Patrick B. David, tell me, what is your perception? By the way, this is Rick Scott, right? Who will lead the Senate now? I understand you managed to chat a bit with Shram there. I welcome the viewers of my channel. Today, I will have a conversation, a joint broadcast with my friend Oleg Britula. When we meet off camera or when we talk on the phone, I want to tell people about the hours of such conversations and discussions regarding reforms, about how we can take examples from the USA, from the same reforms in Argentina and Miley. This is not about digging into the names of some scandals. This conversation is strictly about the future, about innovations, and about a successful Ukraine. Hello, Oleg.
Hello, Dennis. Nice to see and hear you.
Yes, me too. Let's, Oleg, take the bull by the horns right away. We see such a trend in the world. Of course, we can't say that it has taken over the world, but it is starting to. So, Nayib Bukele of El Salvador, the first president who is already in his second term there. The country is achieving success. Well, those who are not in the know can watch the translation of his speech at the UN on my channel, so you can understand what is in his mind and what things he is doing. And Javier Milei was next, Argentina, and now Donald Trump. Oleg, I will cut this out later. Apparently something is still rubbing the t-shirt. I hear some rustling. Yes, the microphone is 100%. What are you touching right now? Maybe adjust it somehow.
I will raise it up like this.
Yes, this is the thing he is located.
I understand. Okay.
So Trump became the president of the USA, and very serious reforms are announced, a package of reforms, and the most important team, which we will touch on a bit later, will continue the department. But overall, how do you assess the trend of what will happen next in the world? Could this reach Ukraine, or do you see other countries being affected first? How do you see the situation?
I want to say, first of all, congratulations that Trump's victory is our common victory. We all, each of us, contributed some amount of effort to his victory. Secondly, consider this as a starting point of a new era in the development of the earth. Indeed, in the development of society. Because starting with Nayib Bukele in El Salvador, then, as you said, Javier Milei got involved, but with Javier Milei, a saw was already added, which was specifically libertarian in its very fundamental essence, and with a clear message that the main enemy of man is the state. And indeed, the people agreed with this. And now it turns out that the next one was America. This is certainly a very, very, very good victory and very, very encouraging. It turns out that libertarianism is, in my opinion, starting to spread at the incredibly fast speed of light, I believe, because after the phenomenon of Javier Milei and America and beyond, it will be very easy for people to orient themselves, such as, because I emphasize once again that the main enemy of man is the state, which takes all resources through taxes and then creates only problems. Therefore, if everything is properly arranged in its places, if an entrepreneur is put at the head of the state, and in this case, it turns out that entrepreneurs have come to power in America, and it turns out that they have become above politicians. That is, the entire political structure remained at the bottom while entrepreneurs moved up. This is Trump, this is Elon Musk, this is Vivek and Ramaswamy. It turns out that they kind of already control all this squabbling between the parties. And this is indeed kind of a truly significant force that will very really turn the world upside down.
But how can Ukraine embark on this challenging path? You still see that this should lead, and people need to realize a lot. In your opinion, what mechanism do you believe in?
As I see it currently, at the current moment in time, considering that indeed Donald Trump has become president, and as it stands, he has a dedicated team, a so-called structure created, I think proposed by Elon Musk and Vivek together, which has its goal. This is a government of efficiency in its operations, effectiveness, and productivity. It turns out that In fact, they should make the state kind of highly efficient. It turns out that the state essentially lives its own life. In essence, people need the state to function effectively, like a business. As we enter the business, we as entrepreneurs are certainly in a clean field. We are in a clean market, and there is competition. The state has no competition. It ends up in a monopoly, and it has already become so detached from the people that, in principle, people do not see where this state is or what it is doing. Consequently, the state has no feedback. And what does business consist of? Business consists of the fact that if you do something, you always receive feedback from the entrepreneur. In this case, there is none, and therefore all the problems lie with the person. It turns out that all resources, and at the moment I believe it is more than 50%, considering inflation it might even be 20%. Those who wish to distribute and divide resources and wealth often take from the individual who is actively producing something valuable. In the end, this money, which is taken from the producers, is often used inefficiently, leading to wastage. And what is the task now? It is to not let the state consume, to leave all the money and resources to the people, and they will determine for themselves how to redistribute them. And if we leave it to the people, taking no more than 10%, then now it is 50-70%. Calculate now 50 and 70. So this hour, a person uses in the future for educating their children, for increasing their business, for investments, the end of their life, so that they will not depend on the state. It turns out that the state took it and it all disappeared there. And it is completely unaccountable.
So we can say that perhaps businessmen, entrepreneurs should go into politics.
I think in the future there should definitely be a rule that if a person has not been an entrepreneur for at least 5-10 years, if they have not created jobs, if they have not worked in a live open market in pure competition and achieved any results, it is completely absurd to send a person somewhere higher to absolutely represent your interests. This is already a cripple. There is a disorder with the brains. First of all, he will be immediately corrupted because he has achieved nothing in life. How is it truly possible that an incredible pioneer like Obama suddenly becomes a billionaire in just a few years? And whose money is it at all? The state is 3 branches of power: legislative, executive, and judicial. These are officials. They receive money from us, the taxpayers. How can an official have such wealth in just a few years? That is, if there is, let's say corruption exists all over the world. In America, it can be multiplied by 100. People used to be afraid to talk about it, but now look at Elon Musk's X feed. It's all about corruption, all about taxes. And the numbers there are so terrible that it's hard to comprehend.
Yes, we can immediately tell people that if in America, which still remains the most powerful and prosperous country despite all its problems, such things happen. And we will learn even more when Trump's inauguration occurs and the department starts to really work. As Roma said with you yesterday or the day before, it should be a chainsaw sweeter than asteroids in America. That is how powerful this should be. Now we will model this for Ukraine. What I mean is that we can imagine what is happening there in Ukraine. If we really take the entire budget component, both local and central, there are really 70-80% of that same chainsaw on steroids. Only in the case of Ukraine, it's on triple steroids, just cutting like that. If people were shown these expense items, this absurdity, they would grab their heads, those, of course, who know how to think. Isn't that so?
Certainly. When I mention this, I am speaking figuratively about the tools and methods each libertarian might use. To elaborate, among the 3 individuals currently leading the government, each has their own unique strategies and tools in their leadership roles. This diversity in approach is what I refer to when discussing the tools used by libertarians. It's Elon Musk holding a flamethrower in his hand, then driving a large, intimidating saw, and right behind him stands Gates with a massive, heavy hammer in his grip, which will completely knock the brains out of all this bureaucracy.
And the most important thing, the hammer of justice, right?
Yes, the hammer of justice. It turns out that these three tools are needed by all countries. America will be an example. In any country, entrepreneurs must come and take those three tools to restore order. Now, order will be established here in America. I think it will definitely be quite quickly because there is a plan until 26. Restore order. It's official, but we do it much faster with Musk. No, but that's kind of normal for Musk. He multiplies everything by X, so it will probably be done in a few months. It seems.
I think within a year.
Well, mainly, the primary focus is on this issue. And to finish with this matter and put all these thieves who have been causing significant trouble in prison. I strongly believe that this process will start very, very soon, perhaps even sooner than expected.
Literally just immediately following the inauguration, I think, really. Yes. Look, it turns out that if this is indeed created in America, this problem exists in all countries. Of course, we are most interested in Ukraine, but perhaps some countries will orient themselves earlier. There is even Melanie Vitali. They will do it faster. But everyone needs to do it. DOGE department needs to be established globally. A good example from business with that Musk. He bought Twitter while it was still not renamed, while he was at Axe. As soon as he arrived, 80% of the employees were fired, and the social network only got better. No processes collapsed, although we all understand that this is a high-tech company. Managing bureaucracy in the state is not that difficult. There are no super tasks. Officials create nothing. They simply redistribute the wealth of others, those who pay taxes. In the case of Ukraine, there is also the donation from other countries or the IMF. That is, this could become a global trend in creating these departments as a counterbalance to the state and possibly even a tool for capitalists and entrepreneurs to fight against the state's tentacles.
I think from a visual perspective, it will look like this. In any country, when reforms begin, such as economic or social reforms, three entrepreneurs come in with three sinks and all processes start to be put in place. For example, that is, just like Elon Musk did with Twitter, what specific steps? First, reduce the state in terms of quantity. But, for example, BIVEX suggests 75%. I think in countries like ours, it needs to be 90%. That is, 90% of officials are eliminated, leaving 10%, and taxes are introduced at no more than 10%, specifically on consumption, that is, on purchases, which can be fixed. And then, if you fix it on purchases, you pay 10%. One goes, for example, to central authorities, one to local ones, distributed in some proportion, and you don't need any ARS nor declarations at the end of the year, nothing at all. And you don't need an accountant, nor a supervisor, and no authorities that can come to you and say that you did something wrong. Because all these complicated taxation systems are, in a way, made for socialists, so that any person can be grabbed by the collar at any moment. That is, if there is a person, a case will be found, as they said.
Yes, this is why in the reform program, although there is a sales tax, I am currently studying more, looking at whether a transaction tax might be more innovative and correct, but the principle itself is important. That is, the tax should not end up in the hands of the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur should not be a redistributor between the service, the product, and the state. As soon as these state funds end up in the hands of the entrepreneur, it becomes a reason for tax authorities to check you, to definitely find something, to hook you on. That is, we need to get rid of this. A transaction occurs, and the state immediately receives a little bit, whether it's central authority or local. Fifth conversation, that's it. The entrepreneur does not touch this money. There is no need to check him. Everything is automatic, especially with our technologies which we have today and which are not standing still. Super artificial intelligence is on the way. It's ridiculous to administer and create just crowds of officials for the administration of absolutely simple processes that computers, especially artificial intelligence, can solve in a second. This is what thousands of people with high salaries are engaged in.
I absolutely support that. Elon Musk went further. He had a proposal that if there is a society on Mars and it is organized as some kind of authority, then he said there should be a non-representative democracy That is, given the technical capabilities we have, why do I need a whole person to sit somewhere in some building and represent my interests? This is already absurd. But we need to start, I think Elon is right, with the RAIN system at least, to establish this existing system, to bring it to its senses. After that, I think there will be further steps. And since Elon wants to create a society on Mars, he then looks and sees that we have chaos here on Earth. Let me just tidy things up a bit here. I believe that now, currently, every next country that will have elections without the potential influence of Elon Musk's and Trump's X platforms at the moment, which can potentially create such a social lift that no party inside matters. Because here you don't even need money. Everything is so honest and transparent. If there is indeed support from such a libertarian, the first and richest person in the world, he will say that one word is indeed intriguing, and you already have a real chance to be a contender to lead something, meaning this is already trust. Because if he says it's intriguing, this is a wealthy person who has created so many successful businesses. And he kind of recommends you, then no one can argue with that. And no parties will help. And most importantly, no money will help. So, if Musk makes a post about some political figure in a certain country saying he supports him, let's be clear, that in fact immediately gives 20% of the presidential rating in any country in the world. I think more.
In some cases, probably more. After all, people are watching us, both prepared and not very much, and it immediately causes panic in a post-Soviet person. How can this be? How can one live without the state in their life? How can one live without officials? I want to say that everything around us was created by entrepreneurs. And now you mentioned representative and non-representative. Let's take a simple example. There are again technologies. There is, for example, the budget of some city. Why will people sit in sessions? We are talking about the future, but it's important to understand the principle now. If we can vote from our phones, why not allocate this budget for the year directly, without an intermediary? This removes that very corrupt person, or the possibility for corruption. Right.
Absolutely right. And now the intermediaries are, look at which professions are dying, I believe. Accountant 1, lawyer 2. Who else? Everything. Even in the near future. Judges, arbitrators, and so on. That is, all these intermediary professions, they are just a wall. And if a young person definitely wants to have a future, they should focus their attention on Elon Musk's X platform and his 6 enterprises. There is your future. Therefore, people should initiate that young people should be on X, because there, firstly, is online information. Secondly, it is transparent. Thirdly, it is truthful. And next, it is very important, and all technologies and politics are there. At this moment, indeed, there is a lot of political information, but over time, I think it will all disappear.
Still, we see that corporate media are dying, and essentially X is taking their place. Information reaches us in a second, and again, here is the intermediary, the same as corporate media. The corporations set it up. It doesn't matter whether it's shareholders or, as in the case with Bezos, 6 or 7 major editors. Under them, an editor, and smaller journalists. They process truthful information in a way that benefits them and presented it to millions, implanting in the mind something completely different from how it was. After all, why do many people now say, sensation, Trump won, sensation? Because these corporate media were deceived from every corner, claiming that Harris was winning and that Trump is a complete marginal supported by some marginal figures. And when we open the voting map by districts, we see that the entire map of America was absolutely and entirely red. Not by states, but by districts. It turns out that the majority actually supported Trump. And here lies the deception. And I want to say again, since we are dealing with Ukraine, in Ukraine, do not believe any polls. They are all manipulations, or all this press. All the major press under Soros, they will shape candidates and others for you. possibly those that have nothing to do with reality. That is, in reality, people may support the majority of the candidate that these media do not mention at all, for example.
I would confirm your words. I would even say more precisely, if you do not have online information, it is already propaganda. Why are your streams so successful? Because it is online information, people receive it immediately, and that is why there is trust. And as soon as it is filtered through some time interval, first of all, the information is already lost, because at this moment, it is probably no longer relevant, especially since everything is moving at the speed of light now. So the only platform that can be trusted at the moment is the X platform. And to people who have already created something in life and through this prism, present what they would like, how society would generally live. Because those who create do not claim to take something from someone. They claim that they want to make life better for people, so that it is even more comfortable for them to live in this space. And it turns out that, in fact, all individuals can be divided into two categories. On the right side, there is essentially the creator who works, even the one who helps to do business, there with the businessman. And on the other side, there are people who divide, steal, and then organize a war against you, who are constantly plotting and scheming to take what is rightfully yours and then use it against you in a malicious way. If you are in contact with someone, you should immediately turn on some kind of filter and figure out whether this person is creating something or wants to take something from you. Or is it just pure propaganda from him, perhaps? He is simply taking your time, and he is currently sitting on a salary funded by your taxes right now, at this very moment. That is the most significant problem.
Yes, yes. We are currently seeing examples that confuse people on YouTube, dragging them in, well, poisoning them with informational poison. It's like in nutrition, you can create poison with venom. This is informational poison that destroys people's minds. And look, Oleg, since we touched on the topic of the press, freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is the foundation of democracy. And I like that Musk often makes these posts, and he always says that if you are not receiving all the information completely, in full, how can you even go and vote if you are objectively cut off? This is the foundation of everything.
Because if a person is not aware of 360 degrees around them in every direction and does not see what is happening at all times, how can they make a decision at all? In order to make a decision, you need to understand what is happening in politics, what is happening in science, what is happening in the economy, what is happening around you, and only then can you have the right decisions. And of course, you absolutely need to surround yourself with people who think exactly like that, and then you will certainly receive right and appropriate feedback. What is essentially Elon Musk's notable and significant strength? It is that he has feedback between himself and the customer, and he directly sells cars. He directly, openly, is making the most advanced rocket in the world. He hides nothing. There are drones flying. Everything is open. Please do as I do and better. No one does this. And now take the government. It will close something. NASA, inaccessible, a lot of security, a lot of everything. And then this rocket doesn't fly after 10 years. And in the case of Elon Musk, in just a few years, Starship and Booster will practically launch their 6th flight today. This will be, of course. Is he going to be there in person? Yes, he definitely should. But this is fantastic. It turns out that creative people who bring into existence something in various forms, what beauty they make and how they expand the world and inspire others. So this is Elon Musk's philosophical position about life, to have more people, for business to be open, and to have less bureaucracy. The idea, in essence, is that there are no significant issues or challenges with the current state of people because we will successfully conquer and inhabit other planets, meaning humanity is expanding in the foreseeable future.